So basically, this comes from the Port of London Authority. It's for recreational boaters who are going to be on the Thames. Things to pay attention to: is your vessel suitable, speed limits, etc. 12 knots is the speed limit for most sections. Then there's 8 knots in other sections. We will probably, hopefully, be going a lot slower than 8 knots, but it depends on the tide. So we're going to be going on a flood tide. A flood tide is when the water is moving from here up that way.
Yeah.
Right, so the moon is pulling the water up and pushing it upstream. That'll make the journey a lot faster. So we'll start at Limehouse Marina, where we'll come out, and basically the rule is fairly simple. We stay on the starboard side all the way, so we go through the most starboard side of every one of the bridges that is open to us. We try and stay out of center lane traffic, because that's where the large boats go and everything. Each one is a little bit offset, so we sort of want to know ahead of time which ones we're going through. There are different lights depending on whether or not the bridge is open. There's the possibility of there being a closed navigation, which is a triple red circle. There's reduced headroom, which will be traveling at daytime, not nighttime, so we don't need to worry about the reduced headroom light, so instead there's a bale of hay. Then there's the 2 amber lights. The 2 amber lights means it's open through and you should go. And then there's what they call the isophase light. If you see that, it's a special light, so it comes in different speeds, and it means that there's a large vessel approaching. Like I say, for the most part, we stay as far starboard as possible. We're normally going to be using the rightmost span that has 2 amber lights. The biggest risk is ending up funking into one of these pylons. That's the danger, and that is a real danger, but not if you plan ahead. The water's going to be trying to go through. So if you choose the right line ahead of time, you make it through. It's no big deal. From basically Limehouse to here, Lambeth Bridge, that's the busiest section of the entire country. Well, really Tower Bridge to Lambeth is the... Yeah. But yeah, basically from Limehouse to Lambeth Bridge, you're going through what is essentially the most congested waterway in England. That's going to be the kind of tricky part. And it's congested both because of the sheer amount of traffic, but also the fact that all these bridges have variable headroom and variable depth and all sorts of potential issues.
And what's the deal with Richmond Lock?
So there's a tidal barrier. That's the half-tide weird here. A half-tide lock and rising weir gates operate at Richmond. The lock is 76.2 meters long, so this is like the biggest lock we're ever going to see. When the weir gates are down and the weir closed, the arches display the signals prescribed in the Thames bylaw for closed bridge arches.
Oh, okay. So if the tide's okay, you just go through.
Yeah. So if the weir is lifted, right? So if the weir is out of the way, then you just go through. If the weir isn't lifted, then you have to go through the lock, which goes around the weir, right? Okay. So basically, it's a big movable weir. Once we're up there, we're in safe ground anyway.
So it's about 2 weeks before the Thames trip.
Possibly, yeah. We're very flexible on the actual leaving time at this point, because we have the preparations we need to do, which include a little bit of engine maintenance and some checks and some reading, and I've got to do a VHF course to qualify to use a VHF radio, which is kind of funny because I've used one before. Here in the EU and Britain, due to the EU, you are required to have a license to use a VHF portable radio in marine circumstances. In the States, you basically just don't have to, because the Coast Guard will shoot you if you do it wrong. So I found somebody who I will call later today, who seems to be scheduled for the end of August, so within the next couple of days, actually. If failing that, there's somebody who can do it in September 1st. This is why we have to be a little flexible on the day we're actually trying to do it. It's all fairly simple. I mean, certainly there are risks. The Thames is a large river. It's a tidal river. It is the busiest waterway in England, and it is a very busy waterway. It is not an active, like, high-level shipping port or anything, so it's not quite as busy as, like, the Vancouver Harbor, where I've been before. We'll be going up on the flood tide, so we'll basically wait for the water to come up to a sufficient depth that they allow us and recommend we leave Limehouse Lock. We'll turn right, and we'll basically be going with the tide all the way up, at least until the point that it reaches high tide. That mass of water will be sort of pushing us along. So we will be moving at roughly, up to about 4 knots, even if we don't have the engine turned on. We'll be moving at a faster speed than we're used to. We will be moving at a faster speed relative to anybody coming the other way, because they could be going up to 8 knots, in some places 12 knots, and we'll be going that way. We won't be getting anywhere near 12 knots, I'm sure, but But then there's the relative speed difference, which means that the wake coming towards you is actually moving faster than you think.
So how do you deal with a wake?
Well, basically you turn the bow into it, if at all possible. Like you ride across the wave rather than going into the trough and then letting the boat do this. You know, it's fine if you do a little bit of that, but you basically don't want to be tilted. So if at all possible, you turn into the oncoming wake and then you ride up and down it, right? That's going to lead to sort of breaking waves coming over the front of the boat. But at the end of the day, it's using the boat to your advantage and its buoyancy, right? You aren't necessarily going to be able to do that. And you have to judge it based on the size of the wake. The things that make it more complicated are you're being pushed upriver. That river is full of bridges, and that river is full of boats. So you've got to keep out a good watch. You've got to keep communication. You've got to, you know, we need to signal with the horn whenever we're making movements. The locks themselves, like the entry lock, is deeper than what we're normally used to, and will probably move a little faster. So you have to tie up to some slats. If you tie up to the bollards, you'll run out of rope and you'll get hung up on the bollards, so you actually have to tie to these vertical riser slats. There's some rules on communication, like you have to sound the horn as you're coming out, you have to tell the authority, you have to radio them and let them know that you're heading out onto the Thames. Obviously don't want to hit any of the bridge stanchions, so you just got to choose your line and commit and go through the bridge, trying to stay as far away from the stanchions as possible. There's several bridges in a row very tightly close together, so you'd want to choose your line early and go through all of them. Obviously everybody on board should be wearing and will be wearing a life vest. We need to seal up the front of the boat, the door, to make sure water doesn't come in. We are going to look at the various through holes and see if any of them need to be bunged up. The anchor is your first line of defense if something goes truly wrong. Engine conks out, or the propeller jams. There's man overboard rules and stuff. We've got the equipment, other than we should get a throwing line and a serrated knife. George, well, simple rule, remove as many distractions as you can. So we're going to take George and leave him with your parents. That way we don't have to worry about George. Yeah, he's an unpredictable, so we just want to, you know, not have an unpredictable on board. The humans should be not inside the cabin. They should be outside, keeping watch and helping me. So, you know, and enjoying themselves, but...
Things left to do.
Well, have to get the VHF license, which means scheduling and possibly expediting the actual delivery of the license and trying to get a hold of the manual. Read the manual and prepare for the test. We need to actually order our VHF radio. That's just an Amazon thing. It'll arrive in a day or two. We will need to do some, like I say, the basic engine maintenance. I've been planning on doing an oil change and everything, so we just need to find a place where we can sort of do that. Insurance, I've looked online. We're covered for all the inland waterways, which includes the tidal rivers, but I'm going to call to double check. I've already memorized the signals. That's easy. You know, 2 amber lights, good. Anything else, not good. Blinking white lights, get the hell out. There is a video that I've found on the Thames Authority website that sort of shows the nominal track through the bridges. The reality, of course, is it's considered nominal, but at any time, any of those bridges could be under repair. They could be, there could have been something that sunk. There could have been any number of issues. So there's you know, that nominal path needs to be updatable as you move along. There are 2 things I'd never even thought about. There's an exclusion zone beside the Parliament and an exclusion zone beside MI5. Don't cross into the exclusion zone. It's deeply problematic, so just don't do that. Also, you may be challenged and boarded by Marine Police patrols at any time. Once we've got the VHF, you have to listen on channel 14 at all times. They tell you about anything that's changing in the channel or anything. So we have to keep listening to the radio, which is not necessarily the easiest thing to do with a handheld radio while I'm driving the boat and half deaf. So somebody might have to sit at the back with me and just listen to the radio and tell me about any changes. So the fact that we've got extra crew is actually a big bonus. The only other thing is timing and basically you know, trip planning, which best I've heard is you want to leave 3.5 hours before whatever the high tide is at Tower Bridge. Ultimately, we're going to rely on what the guys at Teddington tell us as to the actual time to go through. If possible, we'll group up with other people who are doing the same trip, and that'll make life somewhat easier.
I am feeling mid-level anxious about it. I probably wouldn't push to do it. I would probably be quite happy going back on the Regent's Canal and the Paddington Arm. After we've done it, I'll be glad that I've done it. But I think on the day I'll be really nervous and anxious and probably not fun to be around. My research has not been as extensive as Michael's. I've watched Life in a Nutshell's YouTube video of when they went the other way from, I think they came out at Brentford or Teddington towards Limehouse, and they did it in Storm Doris, which wasn't fun to watch. Like, I really admire them for doing it, but then a couple of people have said if they can do it that way in a storm, then you'll have no problem, so I suppose I should feel better about that. And then we watched another YouTube video which was just a time lapse going the way we're going from Limehouse to Teddington, and yeah, it looked okay. Other boats have done it, we can do it, it'll be fine.
The biggest risk by far, really, is would be caused by adverse weather, and we're just going to wait. If need be, we'll just wait. You know, we might lose crew, but hopefully we don't. Hopefully we can schedule it so we do. So, getting in touch with our insurance company.
If you currently have insurance with us, press 2. If you do not...
I have a policy with you for my Narrowboat, and I'm just trying to clarify, because I think from the website it looks like the policy covers the tidal Thames, and I just want to make sure.
You know, you're coming out of non-tidal waters into to get back into them, so it's non-tidal waters with tidal access, then that's fine.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
then.
All right, so insurance is good, and now we've got the VHF radio class.
Please hold the line while we connect your call. Unfortunately, all our lines are busy at this present moment in time.
For the most part, it's just reasonable caution and preparedness. This actual transit does not look difficult.
Do you think we're making more of it than we need to? Like, do you think?
I think everybody's making more of it than we need to. I think that there's reason for caution. You have to have the VHF license. There's a checklist of things that you need to take care of before you go. That checklist is minor, but it is sensible. You know, I would say that people who don't feel confident dealing with large amounts of traffic would risk themselves. Like, this wouldn't be a good idea.
Right,
Caution, but not temerity. It's a week and a bit before the trip. That's the Thames. Joe is a little bit queasy right now and doesn't want to go. Tower Bridge back there will be like basically the first bridge we go under, and then we will go up here, and I'm not entirely sure which one of the spans we'll go under on London Bridge, but it'll be one of them, because otherwise we will sink. And yeah, so if you watch carefully, you can notice things lying on the water going that way. That's because this is the ebb tide, not the flood tide. We'll be going that way. At least I'm pretty sure it's the ebb tide. It's kind of hard to tell from here. Kind of going in both directions. There's the lifeboat. That's what you know.
Look how much air it's getting.
Yeah. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. What's she saying? What's that, Joe?
I'm not doing it.
Yes, you're doing it.
No, I'm not doing
You're totally doing it. It'll be fine.
George
It'll be
is.
fine. George won't be doing it.
Where's your phone?
George is walking across it. But we'll be doing it. We're almost ready. We are still firming up exactly which day we're going to go, because it depends on the tides. We want to take the high tide, subtract 3.5 hours, and then that's the time at roughly which we should be going through the lock. Need to call ahead and actually confirm that with Limehouse. Need to call ahead and confirm a bunch of things with them. Need to do some engine checks before we go. We've been operating really well with the engine the way that it is and everything, so there's nothing to really worry about. I have to sit my exam. The guys at Willow Wren, Steve, has been great and has given me actually a custom assessment time, which was super nice. Because the assessment time that I was going to try and get got cancelled at the last minute. So now I'm taking an online class, which I booked through Willow Wren, and I'm going to get on a train and go up to Rugby and actually sit the test at Willow Wren. Just did the practice exam last night, got 96%, so I think I'll be fine. Weather looks good for next week. Miles and miles and miles of packaging to cover a tiny little device. We finally have a throw bag. This is if anybody goes overboard. If anybody goes overboard, we have big problems. Nobody's going to go overboard. But just in case, open the bag and grasp the free end of the rope, that's this end. Throw the bag with your other hand, and repacking the bag, do not coil the rope. So, you know, fairly simple, 3-part instructions. And it's a floating rope, so we throw it to somebody and it'll stay up on the surface. This would be our not new, but refurbished GoPro Silver. That's good. And then our last thing,
arguably the most important,
is an ICOM M25 Euro VHF radio. This is sort of the low-end model, but I did a survey on Twitter and also with some people that I know care about such things, and we chose one of the 2 brands that everybody recommended as like really good quality radios. It floats. If it ever goes in the water, it'll stay on the surface. It will also turn on a flashing light if it hits the water. Essentially, it does everything that we need to do, but the one thing that I like about it is it charges over USB. Just need to figure out the controls. The nice thing about it is it has a dual scan mode, so you basically have it, you listen in on channel 16, which is the emergency and call channel, and we'll also have it set up to scan channel 14, which is the actual traffic channel that will be used by the London authority. Essentially, I need to learn how to use this, utilizing this in the next couple of days. I need to register this before we do that, so I need to register it before we leave here so I can print out the registration, because the registration has to come with it and the registration has to stay with it forever and ever and ever and ever. Fun part, until I actually do this, sit this, get the ticket, I'm not allowed to push the buttons on this. I can power it up and listen, but I can't run anything, so I can't actually you know, attempt anything, do a radio check or anything like that. For the most part, from everything I understand about the Thames trip, we will use this once at the beginning to call in to Limehouse VTS, and we will tell them that we're on our way. Once we've made that statement that we're on our way, this thing just gets listened to for the rest of the trip. Fairly straightforward. Lots of things to remember, like the whole you know, Victor Hotel Foxtrot.
Can you do the alphabet?
Hmm?
Do the alphabet.
Oh man. Alpha, Beta, Charlie, Delta. Alpha, Beta. I need to read the alphabet.
No, just said it. Echo.
Alpha, Beta, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, India, Juliet, Kilo, Lima, Mike, November, Oscar, Papa. That one always gets me. Quebec, which really should be pronounced Quebec, but anyway. Romeo, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, Victor, Whiskey, X-Ray, Yankee Zulu.
How many times did you sing the alphabet song in your head when you were doing that?
Twice.
So it's now Wednesday and the Tidal Thames run is scheduled for Saturday. So a little bit of an update. You called Limehouse and booked us in?
Well, first I called the Thames Authority and went through sort of a checklist of things that we needed to make sure were done before we went. So I call up and I'm just like, so I'd like to go up the Thames. Yeah. In a narrowboat. Right. And he's like, so do you have a VHF? Yes, I do. Oh, good, because you need one. And he's like, how long are you? 57 feet. Yes, you need a VHF. How tall are you? Oh, about maybe 6 foot. Well, right. Well, no problem there. You've got, 9 feet at the minimum, and I think a few of them will be about 13 meters. Okay, we should make that through. Do you have an anchor? Yes. Right. And how many people will be aboard? Oh, 4. And he's like, do they all have life jackets? Yes. Right. And then basically at the end of it, he's just like, right, that's basically everything. You're fine. Go. Like enjoy your trip up the Thames. Then I called Limehouse itself, And the guys at Limehouse were also helpful. I said, I'm going up the Thames on a narrowboat, and they were like, right! And
Was it the same guy?
no, it's a different guy. but similar sort of a response. He went through the same checklist. We are now scheduled to go out at 14:30. We're supposed to be there at 14:30 to go out the Limehouse Lock.
But knowing me, I'll have us there like 2 hours before anyway.
Yeah. Check the tides. We have just passed spring tide, which is when the full moon is up. We don't want to go out on the full moon. That's passed. We will be close to the three-quarter moon.
So we made the mistake of, on Monday we had to walk from Liverpool Street to London Bridge, across London Bridge, and I had a little freak out.
Yeah.
Because we went at...
Basically, I should just walk you across these things with my hand over your eyes.
I think we went at high tide, and then on Tuesday we walked from London Bridge to Liverpool Street, back the other way, back over London Bridge, and it was even more scary. So
yeah, and that was ebb tide just after high tide. So
and then we had to get the train back to Waltham Abbey, and I spent the whole time googling narrowboats that have sunk on the River Thames. And
thankfully there aren't very many.
I only found one. So
yeah.
So you've got your VHF training tomorrow. You're going up to Rugby to do that.
I've done the training. I've done the course.
You got the exam.
I have the assessment. I have to sit the assessment. So I'm going up to Rugby to sit the assessment. Then on Friday we just are going to try and do a couple of routine, cleanup and maintenance and preparation type stuff.
I'm sorely tempted to
Walk.
to get the train. I am going to be really, really nervous. I know I am. And I think if I don't stay on the boat, I will regret it, unless we sink, in which I'll regret staying on the boat.
See, I think what we should do is what they did to Odysseus. Right, was it Odysseus? I think it was Odysseus. We had to go past the sirens and
We'll just tie me down.
Yeah, basically we'll just tie you to the mast.
Oh, that'll be safe if we do sink.
Well, no, but at least you won't hear the sirens or be worried about Scylla and Charybdis. I think it'll be fine. There is this one hard to visualize thing in the middle of it, which is the half-tide weir at Richmond, where there is essentially a great big barrier that sort of drops these big blades in the way, and they open for 2 hours either side of high tide, and so we need to sort of coordinate our timing to get there at the right time. But all of it should be pretty straightforward and pretty simple.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Wave Rider, Wave Rider, Wave Rider. Victor Juliet, Foxtrot Yankee 5, MMSI 235 352 178. Mayday, Wave Rider, Victor Juliet 5, Foxtrot Yankee 5, MMSI 235 352 178. My position is 55 degrees 05.33 minutes north, 005 degrees 26.54 minutes west. I am sinking. I have struck a submerged object and am sinking. I require immediate assistance. There's one person on board. I'm a white, rigid, inflatable boat, and I am in a dry suit. Over.
Mayday, Wave Rider. This is Clyde Coast Guard. Receive Mayday. Stand by.
So as part of the getting prepped for the Thames, we've got to do some quick engine maintenance. So today I'm doing a fuel filter change and oil filter change. Not really going to try and explain too much, but basically I need to take our primary fuel filter and our secondary fuel filter and exchange those, then run the engine sufficiently long to get the oil nice and heated up, and then do an oil change. For the most part this is pretty simple, except for I have a hard time reaching a whole bunch of the pieces in here, so wish me luck. First thing I'm going to do is get my hands ready, so that means taking off the wedding ring, and I'm going to use this gloves in the bottle stuff. I've been finding that it really works pretty well as kind of a barrier cream. I still put on gloves over top of it, but I've got really bloody big fingers and big hands, and the gloves constantly rip, and when the gloves rip I end up with diesel and stuff all over my fingers and oil, and it's just nasty and carcinogenic and not good for you. So the barrier cream, oil, gloves in a bottle, shielding lotion, does a nice job of making it so that if anything gets on there, it doesn't get through to my actual flesh. Okay, here's hoping that stays in place relatively well. Engine fuel off. Get this guy into position.
Today's the day.
We're heading up the Thames.
Well, not at the moment. At the moment, we're heading up the Limehouse Cut, but
Yeah, at the moment we're going away from the Thames.
Because we've got this little bit of canal to finish. What is it, the Hertford Cut we didn't do, so we need to do that.
Yeah.
And then we're heading down to Limehouse, and it's happening.
Yeah, and as you can see, the sky is blue. The weather gods have decided to be kind to us. There is a very, very light breeze from the south at the moment. There is no hint of rain or anything. Of course, it's England, so that could change within the next 15 minutes. We're good to go. We're not going onto the Thames until 2:30 UTC, which is Universal Time Coordinated. So a couple of days ago, took the VHF short range radio class, SRC, did the actual assessment, did the class online. Wasn't sure about doing the class online, and honestly, if I'd been able to go up and spend a day at Willow Wren doing it as a classroom course, I think it would have been a better choice and well worth the money. But the online course did work. It was kind of an online radio simulator where you clicked things with your mouse and pretended you were working with a radio. Not bad. Able to pass the basic ideas, certainly able to get what you needed to pass the test and to get certified. But if you were thinking about doing this, sit the actual classroom class, especially if you're going to Willow Wren. Great guys.
Yeah, they've given you lots of advice and tips.
Oh god,
as well.
yeah, it's
like,
been
about the Thames, not just about the radio.
Yeah, amazingly helpful.
So yesterday I was back in London and I happened to walk across Blackfriars Bridge, and the Thames was a lot calmer and the tide was a lot lower, so I feel a bit better. But my stomach is still in knots this morning. I
am of the opinion that it's not by a damn sight the most frightening thing I've ever done. So I'm not really that worried about it at all. Notice that I am wearing the Great Wave Godzilla t-shirt.
Yeah,
Godzilla?
Great Wave. I've got my sailor t-shirt on. Yeah. We've dressed for the occasion. So yesterday Michael did the oil changes in the transmission and the engine oil.
And the fuel filter change.
And the fuel filter change, and that was a long and stressful day.
It shouldn't have been so long and stressful, but a couple of my tools decided to pack up and stop working.
One's now in the bottom of the canal, but you know.
Never buy one of those screw-down adjustable wrenches. They're totally useless unless you buy an extremely expensive one.
Anyway, how did the liquid gloves work out?
Yeah, the liquid gloves work good. They kept my hands protected. The nitrile gloves broke every like 2 seconds, so I kept switching out pairs. But my hands are not all crinkly from diesel or anything. Thumbs up for that thing. Those do barrier cream stuff.
We'll link it below.
Yeah, the protection stuff. It really does help when you're working with diesel and stuff. So we got like 6 locks, 7 locks to do.
Wish us luck. Not for the locks, for the Thames.
The explanation for 2 different types of shirt shirt, like buttoned together. Sometimes I just don't know why some of the things end up in the canal. So we're in Limehouse Basin.
That's the lock that we're about to go through and onto the Thames.
Yeah, we got a few more minutes, a little bit of time before they open it. Props clear, gas is full. Oil's changed, fuel lines are changed. We've both got our life vests. We have some extra crew. Our crew has their life vests.
We're as prepared as we're ever going to be. You look like one of those trying to protect their identity.
I'm in silhouette and I must talk in a crazy voice. The Thames, is it the London Transport Authority? London Thames Authority? The authority
Hi, George.
Oh.
Oh.
It's got his ball in his mouth. It's now Wednesday. Let me just wait for that.
We're going to offload one piece of crew, or one person.
Piece of crew?
One
member
of the crew.
Alright, so, as part of our... Oh, Joe? I need that dish with the magnet in it. So as part of all this, getting prepped for the Thames, we gotta do a little engine maintenance, fuel filter change. Oh, sorry, never mind. Yes, please. I've probably just done way too much of it, so I might do arms in a bottle in this case. There are a couple of airplanes laying some sort of weather controlling chemical into the sky. The Hertford Union is a great, beautiful stretch of canal, but for one problem. That is the carbuncle, the gherkin, the penis, the greatest architectural monstrosity ever visited upon man, and the end of all times.
Okay, we got movement going on. We got considerable movement going on. Ah.
There's a boat coming up.
Yeah, there's a boat coming through. That's why there's movement going on. Yes. All right, David, your head's being cut across by the by the sun there. Yeah, there we go. Now you're just being beheaded. So
I can't see.
Both of them had a syringe of horse tranquilizer available in case she panicked.